بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده حمدا دائما أبدا سرمدا في السراء والضراء وفي الشدة والرخاء، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As tonight, sadly, is the last night of the two-night program about the Fatimiyyah, the first Fatimiyyah, I would like to take the opportunity and offer my condolence for the occasion to our living Imam Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, and to all brothers and sisters, particularly brothers and sisters that are present here. May Allah hasten his return. We desperately need his guidance in the crisis that we are dealing with, not only on a personal level, but in a social as well as global level. The world is moving towards the brink of probably World War III. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. Chapter 108 in the Holy Quran, around the end. These are Surah Al-Kawthar is considered to be the smallest chapter in the Holy Quran. The commentators of the Holy Quran, Mufassirin, have had a number of opinions regarding the concept of Kawthar, and last night I briefly touched upon a few of them. Surely we have given you the Kawthar, so offer prayer to your Lord and sacrifice. Surely it is your enemy who are abtar or will have no lineage or no posterity. This verse was revealed, according to the commentators, after the death of the last son of the Holy Prophet, in which the father of Amr ibn As ibn Wa'il, was the one that led the attack against the Holy Prophet and said that with the loss of his son, that then he is not going to have a lineage or posterity, and he is considered to be abtar. This chapter clearly not only rejects the concept, but also condemns such a notion that existed in Jahiliyyah, that women had nothing worthy of commentary. And this is why we have problem with when it comes to historical detail about the life of early major figures, female figures in Islam, including Fatimiyyah az-Zahra salamullah. Briefly recapping some of the points that we discussed last night for the benefit of those whom I see, alhamdulillah, for the first time. I haven't seen them last night, but present here. Talking about a persona such as Fatimiyyah az-Zahra is going to be difficult, to say the least. I mentioned that her nobility and sublime personality is taken for granted by both schools of thoughts, the Shias and the Sunnis. They all agree about her nobleness. There is no debate about that. The difficulty is when you have such a complex character and persona, where to start and how, as we say it in academia, how to deconstruct in a manner that makes it easier for people to understand. The only thing you can do is take bits and pieces, one character or the other, and focus on them, hoping that you create a good picture about that person that people understand and comprehend. To make it easier, I said, well, last night I will focus on the reverence that exists in the Holy Quran as well as Sunnah regarding the character of the Ahlul Bayt, and particularly Sunnah focuses on the life of Khadija, Fatimah al-Zahra, and Sayyida Zainab sallallahu alayhi. But in the Quran, the Surah Al-Kawthar is the surah number 1, the only surah that directly relates to life of Fatimah al-Zahra. There is no doubt that there is any mention of anybody else. But when it comes to Ahlul Bayt as a collective, we had a number of verses that I pointed out last night. Ayatul Tathir, the purification verse. Ayatul Mubahala, which specifically mentions the 5 individuals. Ayatul Mawadda, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the Holy Prophet, tell them, I don't expect any reward for the services that I went and provide for you. The only thing I ask is for you to be respectful and loving and caring about my own family. And also in the case of Surah Al-Insan, وآية الإطعام ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا, the famous story that I mentioned it last night. Tonight I want to focus on another dimension of the Holy Prophet, Fatimah al-Zahra salamullah alayha, and that is her activism, particularly what we call the political activism. But before I do that, I want to pose a question, and I seriously want you to reflect on it. Because if we understand this point, then we can bring Fatima, or what makes Fatima so great, into our lives. The question is, what makes Fatima such a lofty character in Islam? Is it simply because she is descendant of the Holy Prophet, Ahlul Bayt? We had nasty characters within the descendant of Ahlul Bayt, because some of the Imam's sons were considered to be totally despicable. Or is it something else? When we look at some of the ahadith that we have from Ahlul Bayt, it really not only encourages, commands us to reflect and think. Imam Sadiq salawatullah salam alayhi has a hadith, says, نحن حجة الله على الناس. We, the Imams, are the proof, the testament, as well as the witness for the people. وفاطمة حجة علينا. It's when we think about the meaning of this hadith, al-insan al-kamil, that manifest in all the Ahlul Bayt, in Imams, considered to be the perfect living example of human being. And yet, these insan al-kamil, they say, despite the fact that we are the proof, the testament for everybody else, Fatima stands as a shining beacon for us. Where is Fatima in the relationship? How much do we understand about the character, the lofty character of the Fatima? If we think this hadith is a little bit difficult to comprehend, there is another hadith Qudsi that I will explain a little bit more about it. Ya Ahmad, lawlak lama khalaqtul aflak. In a hadith that we have, there are revelations that come in the text, the format of the Quran, which we have codified in the book that we have, from shortest surah, Surah An-Nas, until Hamd, which ends on one side. 114 chapters. But sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly talks to or speaks with Prophet and uses the personal name, sometimes Ya Muhammad, sometimes Ya Ahmad. And these are part of the Ahadith Qudsi. Ya Ahmad, this is one of them. لولاك لما خلقت الأفلاك. Khilqa and creation, which we have to explain how did it take place and what does it mean. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have created anything. ولولا علي لما خلقتك. And if it wasn't for Ali, I wouldn't have created you. وَلَوْلَا فَاطِمَةَ لَمَا خَلَقْتُكُمَا. And if it wasn't for Fatima, Urafa, the mystical scholars, both in the Arab world and the Persian world and non-Persian world or non-Arab world, they have spent huge amount of time focusing and trying to delineate and deconstruct the meaning of this hadith. And if it wasn't for Fatima, I wouldn't have created both of you. Now, this concept of creation needs to be elaborated a little bit. The essence of creation comes from another hadith Qudsi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kuntu kanzan makhfiyya. I was a hidden treasure. فَأَحْبَبْتُ أَنْ أُعْرَفْ. I loved to be recognized and to be known. فَخَلَقْتُ الْخَلْقَ لَكَيْ أُعْرَفْ. I created, so by this tajalli, self-disclosure that I do through the process of creation, people or things that are created will become the signs for me. And there are verses in the Holy Quran that signs of Allah everywhere. If only we remove the veils from our eyes and we open our eyes, the inner eyes, the heart, and we see the signs. في الآفاق. فبي عرفوني. I am the means, the tools, the by which people know me. In every stage of creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the tajalli or self-disclosure to create. In the first step that Quran talks about, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, the first creation is light. And according to our hadith, is the light of Ahlul Bayt that were created first. And there are a number of hadith from the Holy Prophet and other Imam clearly stating about that. So when we have such a lofty character that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if it wasn't for her, neither Ahmad or Ali would have been created. A'imma say, if we are the proof and the testament for the people, Fatima stands as a testament for us. What makes her so great? When we analyze and look at the ahadith from Ahlul Bayt regarding and trying to answer this question, we come to, and by the way, there is a rich literature in Irfan regarding these ahadith, full of metaphors, allegories, parables, and so on, that you really need to spend some time to read them, and particularly those who are familiar with Irfan, they understand some mystical movement, both in all around the world, whether it's in the Arab world, whether it is in non-Arab worlds, Persian and Pakistan and India, and goes way back in Africa. Naqshbandiyas and the others are spending huge amount of time understanding these ahadith and debating it. Returning to this earlier question, if we engage the ahadith from A'imma, they point out to one character of Fatimah al-Zahra that dominates her character and her persona and everything else that she does. And that is absolute submission to the command of Allah, no wavering whatsoever. Concept of taqwa and God-wariness to the absolute level. Remember, inshallah, one day, if you look at the concept of taqwa, if you go back to the ayah 183 in Surah Al-Baqarah regarding the obligation of fasting, كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. The goal is clearly narrated and stated, لعلكم تعقلون, so that you become God conscious. Unfortunately, in our literature, taqwa has been interpreted as fear of God. No. Ultimately, through submission to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you reach a level that you see, as Amir al-Mu'mineen said it, ما عبدتك خوفا من نارك ولا طمعا في جنتك. I didn't pray, I didn't submit to you, I didn't follow your command, I didn't worship you because I was afraid of your fire, or I was somehow wishful that you reward me with heaven. No. بل وجدتك أهلا للعبادة فعبدتك. You deserve to be worshipped. Once you get to this level of ma'rifah, that's the high level of taqwa. There is a khutbah in Nahj al-Balagha 193. It's called, well-known khutbah as Khutbatul Muttaqeen. One of the disciples of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi comes to him and he says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, by the name of Hammam, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, sifli al-Muttaqeen, explain to me, describe the muttaqeen for me as if I am looking at them and see them. Imam gives him a short response. He's not happy with it. Then insists, and then the khutbah comes. 103 or 104 characters, one by one, Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions about those who are God conscious, and how this concept of consciousness in their life affects everything else that they do. One of their character of these, عظم الخالق في أنفسهم فصغر ما دونه في أعينهم. Those people who become muttaqi and God conscious to the higher level, the only thing that matters for them in their life is how to structure and formulate their life where Allah and tajalli and manifestation of Allah becomes evident in their life. Nothing else matters. Nothing else. And these people, go and read it. Both the Persian translation is there, the English translation is there. You can go and Google alislam.org if you go and Google it. And Khutbah 193, well, the English translation is there. The Arabic text in Nahj al-Balagha is there. And one of the famous khutbahs, that when you read it and when you reflect on it, it makes you somehow think about our own position vis-a-vis the concept of taqwa that constantly we talk about in our lives. عظم الخالق في أنفسهم فصغر ما دونه في أعينهم. Nothing in the world matters but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this kind of mindset kind of molds these human beings, whether they are in pain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether they are in ease, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In every position, as a daughter is for the sake of Allah. As a wife, submits to the command of Allah. As a mother, exactly does the same thing. When we come to political activism, you see this concept of taqwa comes in. And Fatimiyyah Zahra says, I simply, as a true believer, I cannot stand and witness injustice being committed and not to say anything. If we go back to studying and understanding the life of Fatimiyyah Zahra, we don't have much evidence that she had some political, call it literature or political activities or anything else during the life of the Holy Prophet. Yes, she participated in battles, in Uhud and so on, as a support for the Muslims. But to stand up and present a particular, because the Holy Prophet was there and Amir al-Mu'mineen was there. The only opportunity, the only thing that history has recorded about her own political activism is the khutbah, the sermon of Fadakiyyah that she delivered. Fadak was an excuse that she used, but if you go again, I strongly recommend both brothers and sisters to go and read this, to see how she molded major concept of Islamic theology, philosophy, and everything else, concept of imamah, and so on, as within an addendum to the notion of fadak and the unacceptable behavior of Abu Bakr regarding denying Fatimiyyah Zahra of fadak. She had no respect for any of them. Everything that she does becomes political. Whether the Mu'arrikhin or historians claim that Fatima, during the presentation of this khutbah, became had a totally different persona about her than Fatima that was known to everybody else. Fatima suddenly became the lioness in the Masjid al-Nabi. Tore to pieces the entire structure that existed over there. First starts, goes to the mosque and asks her supporters to put a curtain in front of her. We have a concept in political theology that we call it the profane and sacred space. That every ideology, Islam or anybody else, we have our own definition about what constitutes to be the profane space and what constitutes to be a sacred space. Masjid al-Nabi, so long as it's occupied by Abu Bakr, Umar, and those who usurped the Imamah from Ali, becomes not a sacred space, a profane space. And we see similar to this when Imam Zayn al-Abidin, in the presence of Yazid, the member becomes pieces of wood. He says, do you allow me to go up these pieces of wood? He doesn't call member. Why? Because the true member is the one that are being used to elevate human intellect and remind them of the uniqueness of Ahlul Bayt. If you use it to curse Ali, this is nothing more than a piece of wood. Zahra does the same thing, puts a curtain between her and the others. You stand on the other side in the profane section, and I stand here in the sacred section, and delivers. First, she sits. Then she begins to cry. As soon as she cries, the entire population, now this is so-called in the political theology these days, now you have, just imagine, for the sake of argument as a metaphor, far-fetched, but Trump's first meeting with his cabinet, organized in some peculiar places. A major event for those who voted for Trump. Now you have Abu Bakr and his cliques going out into the mosque, organizing the first meeting that I'm the Khalif and everybody else has come over there to submit. Now, in the hustle that goes on, people were not prepared to listen to Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha. So she begins to cry. It becomes a political action. Quietens everything down. Everyone silent. Why? Fatima is crying. What is the reason? Then she gets quiet. Everybody settles down. They begin to cry and everybody settles down. As soon as they settle down and quiet, that's the opportunity for her to stand up. A lengthy sermon. Please go and read it. If you don't understand the Arabic, because it's very dense language, the original Arabic language of Ahlul Bayt, the master of linguists, you may not understand it. You look at the commentary, look at the translation. And she begins by what? In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most passionate, the most compassionate, the merciful, and then praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, for all the blessing that we have received. And goes through, before she talks and chastises Abu Bakr about denial of fadak, talks about Tawheed, talks about Nubuwwah, the role of Nubuwwah in society, talks about how the Jahiliyyah, these people really had no civilization, nothing to be proud of it. It was, if they have anything now, it was because of the guidance of her father. Through us, you were guided. Through us, you became elevated in society. Through us, it was the work of my husband and my father that changed the whole thing around. Otherwise, you people of Jahiliyyah, you had nothing. Then, after laying all these foundation, comes to the point. أفي كتاب الله يا ابن أبي قحافة أن ترث أباك ولا أرث أبي. Everything has been said. The foundation of Quran and literature and imamah and everything has been said. Now it's a personal issue. Turns her face towards from behind the curtain to where Abu Bakr is sitting. Tell me, doesn't call her by Abu Bakr. Ibn Abi Quhafa, which in Arabic language is a demeaning characteristics. Lowing character. You're worth nothing. Where is in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you can inherit your father, I cannot? And then she delivers a list of verses in the Holy Quran that one prophet inherited from the other, one group inherited from the other. And then she poses the critical question. Either you claim that we are not part of Islam, or you believe my father was out of Islam, or you believe that you have some knowledge that we, Ahlul Bayt, don't possess. Or it's a personal vendetta. It's a personal vendetta because you don't like Ali for what Ali has done to your champions during Badr and during Uhud and other things. You haven't forgotten. And we see this thar, as we say in Arabic, the desire to take revenge on behalf of certain things that happened in the past, repeated in Bani Umayyah going to Yazid and after. And at the end, she knows that Abu Bakr, because it's a political decision, he's not going to change. Abu Bakr and Umar, the new administration that came to power, they knew so long as Fadak and the economic benefit of Fadak was under the hand of Fatima and Ali and Ahlul Bayt cannot be subdued and forced to comply with the ruling of these new individuals. So the source of power, the economic power, has to be removed. And he concocted the hadith. Zahra knew that this is going to happen. Said something before she wrapped it up. Said that, do whatever you want. But remember one thing, that there is a day will come when you have to stand before the sacred court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, And the challenging group against you will be the Holy Prophet, my husband, myself, and the entire Ahlul Bayt. Think about what your answer would be. And later on, when the group of women go to visit her and talk to her, she says the same thing. I'm sick and tired of your men and the whole social structure that you are in. But she tells them one thing, that your actions today would lead to bloody consequences in the decades to come. And brothers and sisters, we are paying the price of Saqifa now. 1.5 million Sunni population is waiting for the Shia to support the Sunni population in Gaza. 1.5 billion population is waiting for Shia, the kuffar, that they used to marginalize them, that these are kuffar, rawafid, and so on. This is the consequence of Saqifa. So, read about the life of Fatimiyyah Zahra salamun alayha. As a woman and as a man, there is ample, in her persona, there is ample guidelines for us to be able to follow in our life. I go back to the point I raised right at the beginning of the lecture last night. We really are falling behind in the creation of narratives, and others are moving ahead with creating their own narratives and misrepresenting the fact. Unfortunately, I could go on, but time is running out, and I would like to stop here. Probably a few questions, we will entertain them. And before I wrap up, I would like to ask Maulana for the invitation, as well as everybody else for taking your time to coming here. Inshallah, in the future, you never know, we will have our path might cross again one day. But please, the life of Fatimiyyah Zahra is critical, particularly for the sisters. If you are looking for something to encourage you to be active in your life, in current crisis that we have, go back to Fatimiyyah Zahra and look at her legacies and see what does it tell you. If you submit to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot remain silent in front of injustice. من أصبح ولم يهتم بأمور المسلمين فليس بمسلم. By this criteria, 99% of the Muslim population around the world, we have to exclude them. Sayyid Qutb, the famous Egyptian writer in 1960s, when he was writing about beginning of Fi Dhilal al-Quran, when he talked about Ummah, he said, we don't have Ummah Muhammad anymore. We have Ummah Jahiliyyah. The Ummah has gone back to the Jahili era. Why? Because the value system. Otherwise, can anybody explain to me? Over a year and close to a year and a quarter has passed from 7th of October 2023 up to now. Muslim, so-called Muslim state, power state, pays the Zionist to go to their country and be treated. And if they are injured, they would receive compensation by these people. And caravans of what we call in England as lorries, and here they call them as semis, going from their country across these countries to go to Palestine, in occupied Palestine, not for the Palestinians, for the Zionists. Ships of weapons go from Muslim states to support Zionism, while thousands and thousands of Palestinians are losing their lives, children, women, and everything else. Tell me, are we still calling these people Ummah Muhammad? Far from it. May Allah bless you all, inshallah. and grant you the privilege of really waking up and becoming active in this society. Remember, sisters and brothers, we are living in a very challenging world. Not only we have competing and contesting narratives that we have on a theoretical level to deal with, on a practical level, we live in a world full of contradiction. They talk of peace, but the action is war. They talk of supporting human rights, but for Muslims there is no human right. For Palestinians there is no human right. Nothing, no one in this country is going to give you your right on a silver plate if you don't fight for it. Get organized and become active. That's my last, how can I say, advice that I leave you. And may Allah bless you all. And please pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the return of our living Imam, because we desperately need for his guidance and for his leadership. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.